It was so inevitable, wasn't it? All the signs were there. Norwich with no win at home, no win anywhere for 3 months. But here come QPR, existing to make everybody else feel better once again. We thought it might be different heading to Carrow Road after back-to-back wins, but no, same old story, same old QPR. We will preview the home match with West Brom shortly, but Dave, could we have any complaints with that result against Norwich?
No, it wasn't really a surprise. You look at the run they were on, that was always going to end at some point, and like you say, it's normally us that ends these runs. I think in a week where you won two games, losing the third one isn't a disaster, but I thought the performance was really quite worrying. I thought that was a really poor performance. I mean, for Norwich to beat us 3-1, I mean, it could have been a lot more. They thoroughly deserved to win the game. And it reminded me a bit of the Coventry game, to be honest. Probably not as bad as Coventry, but we could have lost that 4-5-1, maybe six. They had so many chances, Norwich. They were carving us open. And we just seem to have these performances, regardless of who the manager is. They drop a performance where they're well below the standards that you need for a championship team, and they get battered. And it's not always the top team that does it to us. Norwich, a poor side to be perfectly honest. I didn't think they were great. If we'd have got a second one in the second half, I think they would have been rattled and we could have got back in it. But we've got to do better with these performances. They just drop out of nowhere, and like I say, it goes back years. We saw it last season under Cifuentes. We've seen it countless times in the last 5, 6 years. They need to stop doing this and try and raise the standards a bit.
Yeah, they always seem to drop in one of these performances when we start to believe maybe they won't, don't they?
Mm.
You're right about the Norwich match as well. The XG was odd because theirs was a less than one, and it felt to me as well like it was, especially the first half, wave after wave of attack where they felt like they were going to score every time they came forward. We'd said on last week's show it was important not to concede early. Took us 8 minutes. So again, very QPR that they've not even scored more than two at home all season. They get three in little over half an hour. We are just such a bizarre team where we always let teams get exactly what they need when they need it. Primary frustration for me in the match was that despite getting back in the game so quickly, that should have helped us quieten the crowd down, make them nervous on and
Yeah.
off the pitch. But we just never got into the ascendancy at any point, did we? And the two goals we conceded in quick concession just killed us off. Self-destructive as well, to say the least. The third one, it's a nice finish, but force and he'd cut inside every single time he had the ball in the opening half an hour. What did we expect him to do when he got it again? So poor on all levels. What do you think went wrong in the game, though, for us primarily? Was it the team selection or tiredness? What do you put it down to?
Probably a multitude of things. I feel a bit sorry for the manager. He got a lot of stick when we've had these other three games weeks, and he's changed it a lot. This time he didn't change it, and he got stick anyway. I think there probably was a bit of fatigue. I think in midfield they certainly looked tired, and Sam Field struggled. He was really good at left back the games before, but I thought he really struggled in this one. So maybe a few changes would have helped, but just overall, it was just the whole attitude. It wasn't one individual player; it was the whole team. They were just so far off it. There were so many gaps all over the pitch, and I think there was so much they could have done to fix that. I think the manager should rightly be criticised for some of the decisions he made. The subs, I thought he made were bizarre, to be honest. I don't know why he's bringing Frey on ahead of Kone. I thought that was a really odd decision, but just overall, it was just nowhere near good enough. And like I said before, they keep doing this, QPR. They it doesn't matter what the manager is, the players are. They drop these kind of performances, and it's just so frustrating.
It must be frustrating for the managers, although I think because it's one of those where players who've played well, he's just probably thinking they're going to do the same again, but they
Yeah,
drop well off, don't they? All the players who were 7 or 8 out of 10 against Hull and Blackburn, suddenly a 4 or 5 out of 10, and it is hard to account for that. Like I say, even we possibly didn't expect it to be quite such a poor performance. The team selection was probably an issue for me. We've said consistency of selection is key, and it is. But to name the same starting 11 after they travelled about 700 miles, the team, in 3 days with two away games, it was too far the other way to name the same 10 outfield players. We had Dembele flagging after about 10, 15 minutes. He was barely able to chase back. So Smith should have probably started there. Hayden, like you say, should have come in for Varane or Madsen probably because the midfield looked tired. It was just maybe two or three changes we needed to keep us fresh. Not the 5 or 6 we've had previously. So there is a balance to be found in these 3 game weeks. We've just gone from one extreme to the other, and it's cost us again. Hope next time is different, and we've got another triple header this week. So just a few calculated changes across the week, I think, to keep us fresh is what we need. But it's not his fault, the manager, how unfair the 3 game weeks have fallen for us. We said last week, playing Wednesday, Saturday when we've been away both games, it's not fallen well for us. And like you said, hopefully it evens out for us in the second half of the season. And you just touched on Michael Frey, and I did want to ask you, how far off is he at the moment? Well, how is he still getting game time? He's been really bad, hasn't
Yeah, really poor. I mean, he was so effective for us last season. He was probably the best of our forwards last year. But just every time he comes on, he just looks miles off the pace of the game. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've given him a new like long-term contract there, which just seems it just seems to have backfired a little bit so far. You just expect him to have some sort of impact when he comes on, but he honestly just seems miles off it. I don't know if it's where the manager's playing him. He seems to be a little bit deeper of the two up front. Maybe that doesn't suit him. But even when he was playing as the main striker earlier in the season, he didn't look very good either. Um, yeah, we're going to need a lot more from him because we can't just rely on Brom scoring all the goals all the time. We need to spread the goals around a little bit. So it's I found these performances really strange this season.
Yeah, it is. Like you said, he's miles off the pace, but he's always been an odd kind of player anyway. But he's not bringing anything to the table at the moment. He's so easy to
No.
defend against. He's not even really getting near the ball. I imagine it must have been frustrating for Richard Coney to see Frey getting picked ahead of him. First match that Richard Coney's missed since he joined us. So hopefully he sees that as a bit of a message and he responds the right way. At the time, I was wondering why it wasn't Ryan Coley, but we've since learned he's out injured until the end of the month, so he was
Yeah.
possibly injured last weekend as well. But like we said, overall for the match, just too many players, tired, off the pace, dropping levels. 3-1 ultimately was probably a fair enough income, if not more, like you should have said. But it was 6 points from 9 last week. We sit 13th. Now, a busy December period. Where do you stand on where you think we're heading from here? You excited for what lies ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a decent first half of the season, really, so far. We're probably a little bit higher in the table than I thought we would be. I thought we'd be around mid-table. Um, there's plenty to be positive about. We're being quite negative about last week because we were rubbish last week. But I mean, overall, I think we're doing pretty well. The two previous games we played well against Hull and Blackburn, and there's plenty to be excited about going forward. There's a lot of potential in this team. I still don't know which way they're going to go. If they are going to click and be a side that can compete in the top half, or if they're just going to kind of remain where we have been the last few years, struggling. They're a hard side to read, but there's definitely the potential there to have a much better season this year.
Yeah, there definitely is. And I think where we are, 13th, is a fair place for us. We've had some great
Mm,
results, some good runs, some shocking results, some bad runs, and mid-table is ultimately where we are. I think you've said it in the past, and I agree with it again here. It's like if you just reverse the order of the results from the past week, and
yeah.
all would feel well in the world heading into this one. It is a shame that every time we get close to the top six and you feel like we're within touching distance, we then always let ourselves down. But I was updating some stats this week that you can see on the screen. Our XG stats suggest we could and should be higher. We don't always seem to want to grasp the opportunity, though it seems to be the QPR way. But another 9 points on offer this week, albeit we do now play 3 teams in the top half of the table. So it looks tougher on paper. And this clash with West Brom, it's a battle of 2 teams on 25 points from 18 games, 12th versus 13th, so not one for the neutrals, but both sitting 8 points from the top two, 8 points above the bottom three. Doesn't get much more mid-table than this. And it's a strange fixture because we'll play them again in just 23 days over Christmas. And I know I say this most weeks, but we do have a bad head-to-head record against West Brom. In recent years, they're probably up there as one of our biggest bogey teams. We haven't got any wins in the last 6 games against them. We've only got one win in the last 12 across the last decade. And I know I've just said they're 12th coming into this, but they were as low as 17th before getting 4 points in the last 2 games. We're used to seeing West Brom around the top six or thereabouts. Has it been a slightly underwhelming season for them so far, Dave?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of a transitional season for them this year. They've been up fighting around the top six the last couple of years, but the longer you go without making that leap and going up, you're going to have to settle down. They've been in the championship a couple of years now, and I think they're just trying to balance between bringing new players in, and they've still got quite a lot of experience in the side. They're probably last week's game probably sums them up. By half time they're booed off and they look dreadful, and then second half they're flying and end up winning the game. You just kind of didn't. It's a bit like us, a difficult side to get a read on. You don't really know what you're going to get from them, but you know, they'd probably expect to be higher in the table because of the last few years, but I think this is probably where they'll be, West Brom this year. I think they'll just be around mid-table, similar to ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. They'd lost 7 of 12 before the last two results, so typically they come here a bit more confident. Been on a bit of a slide, and when they were 2-0 down against Swansea, like last Saturday, you're right, they were getting booed off. Tension was brewing, so it was an important result for them to turn that around, and it was a great comeback with 3-2. And I think the word you used there was transition. I agree with that. They've lost a lot of names that outsiders like us would associate with West Brom, like Darnell Furlong, Semi Ajayi, John Swift, Diane Garner, etc. So maybe this is just where they are now. The drop off was maybe coming because it is their fifth season at this level. No parachute payments. Is Ryan Mason though in a tough job because he's got to manage those expectations?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a difficult job because, like you say, I mean, the fans will be expecting to be up the top. You look where they've been the last 10, 15 years. They've been either winning promotion or been in the Premier League. That's where they expect to be. So this has kind of been a difficult few years for them. But even then, they've been around the playoffs, so they've been reasonably successful. Um, it's a difficult sell to fans when you come into a club that's been around the playoffs that we're going to rebuild and we're probably going to finish halfway. So he is going to find it difficult. Hopefully he'll get a bit of time. I think he's done okay there so far. Like I said, they're a bit of a very up and down team. I think they'll settle down and be okay by the end of it.
Yeah, definitely. And he's, like I just said, he's made a lot of transfers in the summer and it's still only 18 games in. We say it with Julien Stephan,
Yeah,
don't we? Still learning the league, a bit been learning his team, I mean. But they'd spent 9 out of 11 seasons in the Premier League before this prolonged stint back in the Championship. So I'm sure their fans feel they should be higher. But as we know ourselves, once you get stuck in this league, it's hard to get back up there
yeah,
again. I think overall he's been getting some criticism from sitting back in games when they're ahead, struggling for goals a little bit despite all the attacking talent they have in the squad. Picked up a little bit from their fans that they want him to go for it a little bit more. Like I say, he has a tendency to sit back. A lot of points dropped after they've been 0-0 or 1-0 up heading into the final 15 minutes and then they've conceded. And I think a lot of West Brom fans will be thinking that that turnaround last Saturday could be a wake-up call for him to maybe take the shackles off a little bit and let them go for it. QPR will certainly be hoping it isn't. And he made 4 changes at halftime in that game, Ryan Mason. So hard to work out who he's going to play in this one, but they've got Johnston, Malumbi, Mowat, Mepham, Maja, Grant to name but a few. It's a good squad there, and it's a
yeah.
tough game for QPR, no doubt. QPR, let's start with the defence because we know Sam Field picked up a groin injury. He's going to miss a fortnight or so. Reece Norrington Davis, I think we all agree he's going to come back in. And then
Yeah.
Mbenge and Dunn are the usual certainties. It leaves one centre back space. Are you anticipating another hour from Jake Clark-Salter?
Yeah, you would have thought so. I was surprised he didn't feature last week because they rested him for the Blackburn game. So you would kind of assume he'll feature in this one, and then you can bring on Cook or Morrison for the last half hour. So I think that'll probably be the main change at the back, as well as, like you just said, Field coming out.
Yeah, I think it's almost certainly starts. What's odd is that it's been now another fortnight though for him with no game time because he
Mm,
didn't get off the bench. Because he looked good, didn't he, on the ball against Hull, but his actual defending was a bit rusty, like we said last week. So let's hope he can step it up from here. And I do feel a bit for Liam Morrison because I know he's not been quite at the same standard this season, but he didn't even make the bench last week, so that's quite tough on him.
yeah.
In midfield, can you see him mixing up the Varane Madsen partnership? It definitely seems to be his favoured one.
I think he'll probably go with it again. For me, Varane this season has been really disappointing. We know he's got a lot of potential, and I think there's a lot more to come from him, but he hasn't really hit the heights of last season yet. And maybe it's because he's playing in just a two-man midfield. It's a bit more, bit of a different role, a bit more difficult. But I think the manager will stick with him. I think they probably are overall our best two options in that position. You can maybe bring Hayden in. I'd probably start Hayden more likely in the Birmingham game than this one. Um, but yeah, I think he'll go with the same two.
Yeah, you're right on Jonathan Moran. I spent most of the pre-season match podcast at the end of last season saying he was our most sellable asset, but he doesn't look it at the moment.
No.
But yeah, after a week off, I can't see him make any changes unless Moran had got. He did seem to get a knock at the end against Norwich, but hopefully he's okay. And I agree with you, thinking if he's fit, it'll be definitely Moran against West Brom. Moving forward, Chair and Burrell look the certainties at the moment, but who else starts for you out wide and behind Burrell?
I think Kone will come back in behind Burrell. I think he likes the two up front, especially at home. I think he'll come back in for that one. On the right, he does seem to like Dembele. Um, I'd like to see Smith get a run out. I thought he was good when he come on against Blackburn the other week. and I think at home he can be a real threat for us. But I think he'll go with Dembele again. He does seem to like him, and you know he's done. He was poor last week, but so is everyone else. But he's done okay in a few games before that.
Yeah, he did. I think he will go with what we saw against Hull in the last home game. Dembele on the right, Kone up top, and then you've got the likes of Saito and Smith off the bench.
Yeah.
I agree on Paul Smith, but he's sometimes so good off the bench, it makes you want to use him off the bench again. It's
Mm.
always kind of been the problem with him, hasn't it? Finally, in net, Julien Stephan has said Ben Hamer is out of this one, but he'll be back for Tuesday. But with Joe Walsh suddenly back on the bench at Norwich, it's going to become a conversation again, Dave, but who starts in net?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you kind of assume Nardi would start. Again, I just said he wasn't very good last week, but nor was anyone else. But you'd probably think he'd start in this one, and then Hamer will come back in when he's fit. And they said the Birmingham game he might be back. Um, but it is good to see Walsh back on the bench. He had a difficult start to the season, and it's certainly not the last we've seen of him. I think he will get back in. He'll be pushing for that number one spot at some point this season.
Yeah, definitely. It was just bad timing for Ben Hamer, wasn't it? But we've now lost on Paul Nardi's last four starts. But if he changed it for Joe Walsh, I sense there'd be a lot of nervousness around when the team sheet was read
Yeah.
out. It's one of those, isn't it? So I think it will be Nardi against West Brom. Ben Hamer will then hopefully get his chance again because he didn't deserve to lose his place, did he? But there's no doubting when you're talking about three goalkeepers and which one's going to play, it's become a bit of a problem position this season, undoubtedly. Let us know in the comments who you expect to start in this one. And it just leaves predictions for you, Dave. West Brom, they've not drawn away from home yet. Can you see one coming on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I fancy us to nick this one. I think it might be similar to the whole game, a bit of an end-to-end one. I'm going to go for the obvious 2-1. I think I always do 2-1. I think I think we'll just edge this one. I think at home, um, we got some goals in the team, and I think we'll win this one.
Yeah, our predictions actually are getting horrendously bad this season. We'll have to sack
Yeah,
ourselves soon. But I actually see a draw coming this one. Even teams on paper, like I said, 12th, 13th. We don't have a good record against them, like I highlighted before. So I can see a 1-1, maybe a 2-2, but I'm just struggling to predict a QPR win against West Brom. And one stat to finish on, only Watford and Sheffield Wednesday have opened the scoring less than QPR six times in 18 games. We don't make it easy for ourselves in games. Let's hope we can get on the front foot on Saturday. And as again, let us know your predictions in the comments. Brian and George will be on the next show to preview our Tuesday night home clash against Birmingham. And then Dave and I will return as we preview the long trip north to Middlesbrough next weekend. Until then, thank you for watching as always, and come on yours.